There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kenyon, and this is episode number 384. And today, we are joined by the legendary whitetail bow hunter, Andrae D'Acquisto, for a follow-up to our previous discussion this summer. And this time, we're diving deep into the Whitetail Rut. All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by Onyx. Today, we're joined again by Andrae D'Acquisto. Now, Andrae was a guest back on episode 366, and it was a pretty exciting thing having him on. He has not previously done podcast interviews up to that point, so it was interesting to get to hear from him. We talked for over 2 hours. We still weren't able to cover everything I wanted to, though. And after hearing from many more of you saying you wanted to hear more as well, we had to make it happen. So if you didn't hear episode 366, be sure and go back, listen to that, get the foundation of Andrae's hunting style, get all that figured out. We talked a lot about his scouting, talked about some of his aggressive tactics, talked about really a lot of what he does in October and preseason. But really quick, if you're not familiar, Andrae is one of the foremost whitetail hunters in the country. He's, I think it's fair to say, kind of legendary within the do-it-yourself crowd. He revolutionized, the mobile hunting world when he founded Lone Wolf Tree Stands back in the day. He popularized a series of aggressive hunting tactics that are now widely used and talked about. He's now the founder of Lone Wolf Custom Gear and a host of their Whitetail Addictions TV show. So he's doing a lot of stuff, and he's also... he's aggressive, he's confident, he's unique, and he's wildly successful. So he's someone to listen to. He's someone to learn from. And today, different than last time, today what we're going to do is grill him on the Whitetail Rut. And that's because this episode is launching right now on the doorstep of the Whitetail Rut. That's it. The Super Bowl of the whitetail season, the high point of our year, the grind, the marathon, the big show. This is it. This is happening now. So we're going to dig into everything Andrae thinks about during the rut, why sometimes the rut is frustrating for him, how he still has success many times during the rut, what he does, how his perspective might be different than most other rut hunters. It's interesting stuff. But before we get into that, I do want to leave you with some of my thoughts. I want to kind of open with some high-level principles of hunting the rut, because especially if you're new to deer hunting, I want to make sure you have these basic foundations covered as we go into this time of the year, because now, like the last few days of October and the month of November, this is that breeding season for whitetail deer, which is when kind of a lot of their caution gets thrown out of the wind, or thrown out. I don't know what the saying is. I can't think of it right now. But it gets caution's thrown to the wind. That's it. And they let their guard down and they move a lot more, and it presents us as hunters new opportunities. But at the same time, it requires of us as hunters to put a level of time and dedication into the woods that's different than the rest of the year, if this is what you really want to do. So let's cover off on a few of those basic principles, whether you're new or you've been doing this forever. This is important stuff to just always keep in the back of your mind. These principles of rut hunting success are something that I always come back to. And you've heard me talk about it before, but hear me out, because every year I find myself getting tangled up in the moment of how this hunt went and how that went hunting, what this buck's doing and what that sighting told me, what this trail camera image is telling me, and what the wind's doing, what the weather's doing. And all these ingredients get tossed into a big pot and spun around, and then all of a sudden I spend hours and hours up at night stressing about what I should do and why I should do it and what does this mean. There's so many different ingredients here that you can get confused, you can get frustrated. It's important, I've found, at least for me, to remember that whenever I find myself in that place, to take a step back and look at the big picture again. So here's the big picture. Maybe this will help you in moments like that. The principles of rut hunting success. Number one, think about 2 different types of hunting setups at this time that almost always your plans should fit into this to some degree, because this is really the simplest, most base level of how to find success. You want to be doing one of these 2 things. Number one, focusing on the does, on doe hotspots, right? At this time of year, bucks are looking for a doe that's ready to breed, or they are on a doe that's ready to breed and trying to breed her. But either way, bucks are with or around does because this is the time to mate, to procreate. That's all they have in their mind right now. So if you know where the does are, that's where the bucks are going to be. So this can be one of 2 things. This can be either doe feeding areas, or this can be doe bedding areas. In the mornings, usually doe bedding area is the place to be. Usually all through the rest of the middle of the day, that's the same case. In the evenings, doe feeding areas. Now, something that happens often is that these bucks will try to check multiple doe hotspots throughout the day. And to do that, they're usually going to cruise along the downwind side of those doe hotspots. So if you're trying to choose where to hunt, and you know you want to be hunting a doe hotspot in the morning, let's say a doe bedding area, well, when you're trying to pick the spot to hunt around that doe bedding area, usually a good place to start is on the downwind edge of that, because that's where the bucks are going to cruise and your scent can be blowing away from that, back behind it. So think about that. Number one of those general filters to pass your potential hunting spots through is this a doe hotspot? Or number 2, is this a funnel or pinch point? Is this where some kind of feature, whether that be cover, like how many trees and bushes there are, or terrain, like is there a saddle and a ridge, or is there a lake and a pond over here and just one narrow bridge of land in between it? If there's some way that the natural habitat funnels deer movement into a narrow area, you've got a significantly higher chance of encountering one of these bucks as they travel from doe hotspot to doe hotspot, because they're moving more now than at any other time of the year. So if you can find where these concentrations of movement are, sit there, that's another great rut spot. Best case scenario, you find a funnel like this that's in between a couple doe hotspots. Then every buck that wants to get from point A to point B has to pass through this narrowed area where you can hunt. Again, try to think about wind, try to make sure you're downwind of that point these deer are going to be passing. But this is a high level concept that we always talk about when it comes to the rut, simply because it works. So when you're confused or when you're frustrated or when you're bouncing around 7 different stand site ideas for your next rut hunt, look at these 2 principles of rut success. Does it fit idea 1? Does it fit idea 2? If it doesn't, maybe you're overthinking things. Now, that's about where to hunt. The next and maybe most important principle of rut hunting success, I think, is the mental side of things. And we talked about this last week. We had this conversation with Ryan Holiday all about these different ways to deal with adversity and perseverance and learning from failure and all that kind of stuff. And that's important to the entire hunting season, but never more so than during the rut, because at this time of year, at least for if you're like me, this is the case. Because if you're like me, you look at the rut as the 2 or 3 weeks where you've saved up your vacation days for this time. You're going to put in all your eggs into this basket. This is when it's supposed to happen, right? This is when, fireworks are supposed to be going off in the woods. So you got to be out there as much as possible. And there's a certain amount of pressure that goes with that too. And then if you want to hunt these days the way you should, spend as many hours in the tree as you can for as many days as you possibly can. That is a lot of work. It's a lot of 3:30 a.m. wake-up calls, and that's a lot of long walks to the tree stand and setting up stands or saddles or whatever, climbing up there with your sticks. It's sitting in the tree for 12 or 13 hours straight, and it's freezing cold and rainy and windy, and you're tired and you're exhausted and you haven't ate enough and you haven't drank enough, and sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's frustrating. Things go wrong, and then you get home that night and you have to, do the chores around the house and put the kids to bed and get work done, and then you're back up 3 hours later to do it all over again, and you've got 10 more days of that. That can be a grind. Now, it's the best kind of grind, right? We love it. We live for this. We've dreamed about it. This is what we have looked forward to all year, but it's still tough. It is not an easy thing. And so if you are dedicated to this thing, and not saying you have to be, you can be a deer hunter and just go out there a few times here and there for a weekend, and that can be a fun release. That's totally fine. Go for it. Have a good time. I'm glad you're doing it. But if you are kind of the nutty version of a whitetail hunter like I am, and a lot of my buddies and a lot of you I know are, if this is your thing and you are dedicated to this goal, then this is the grind that you have to be prepared to go through. And that challenge and that work, that is part of it. And so the for lack of a better term, the boys are separated from the men, or the wheat's separated from the chaff, or whatever you want to call it. This is where the separation happens. Is if you can just be a big talker about this, or can you actually be a big walker and push through the grind? This is where it happens. So can you persevere? Can you remember that, yeah, it's been 7 days and I haven't seen a shooter buck, but I know I have to keep going, and I know I need to stay positive because things can change. When tough things happen, when you drop your bow, when you miss a deer, when when the neighbor shoots the buck you were after, when you've had 10 days of not seeing any deer, when all these things happen, how are you going to handle it? This is what we talked about last week, right? It's how do you bounce back from something like that? Do you get so focused on the mistake or the karate thing that happened that you lose your momentum and your edge? Or do you say, okay, yeah, that thing happened. The obstacle is the way, right? This is what we talked about. The obstacle is the way. This thing happened. Can I be frustrated? Yes. But the bad thing, the challenge, the bump in the road, that's not going to break me. That's going to be my next step. That's going to lead me to the next level of growth, or that's going to take me to be one step closer to achieving my goal. This just happened to me the other day, so I'm kind of in the middle of my rut grind. I started last week hunting public land in Ohio, just dealt with a bunch of hunting pressure, never got any good deer, just basically scouted for 4 days. It was frustrating, but that just kind of is what it is. So that happened. Then I came back and started hunting some of my local properties in Michigan that I've been saving for this time of year. Have been very excited to try to get after Tran, my number one buck, 2 other nice mature bucks in this area that I want to get after. So been hunting some edge stuff. Well, I got access to a little area that I haven't been able to hunt in the past. So I've been waiting for the right wind to get in there. And I knew that it was going to be great because there's a standing cornfield there that had just been cut and still is in the process of being cut. So I know this is the absolute best, hottest food source right on the edge of some of the very best bedding that I know my target buck lives in. You want to be there. You want to be in between it, right on the edge of that bedding, in between the bedding and the cover. So I finally had the right wind for this last night. I slip in super duper quiet. There's a light drizzle, so I was able to get in there quietly. I took a really long route around to get in there to make sure my wind didn't blow anything out. I scouted my way into the edge and saw more fresh sign than anywhere I've seen all year. I mean, probably 10 to 15 fresh scrapes, big, like brand new, fresh, no leaves in them scrapes that were made all around this spot I wanted to hunt. Big rubs, the biggest rubs I've seen in this area yet this year. I mean, this is where he's at. And I'm jacked. This is what I've been dreaming of. So I slowly ease my way in, considering the wind, trying to be conservative to make sure I'm not going to blow into that bedding area, but at the same time put myself in a position that I can get a shot in the areas I think he's going to travel down this inside edge between this thick grassy cover and the trees and then the corn. Finally find a tree, get all set up, get up there. I'm feeling great, feeling confident, texting my buddies saying, man, this could happen tonight, et cetera, et cetera. Then the wind dies more than it was supposed to. And then the wind shifts different than it was supposed to. And instead of a southwest, it starts edging to straight west. And I'm getting concerned. I'm tossing milkweed up. I'm like, oh no, please no. Oh no. And then it shifts more and it starts going northwest, right towards that bedding area. I'm thinking, oh no, please no, don't let this be the case. And as this is happening, the rain's coming down. It's been raining. It went from a drizzle to more of a steady rain. So it's hard to hear things. I'm throwing milkweed and looking at this, and then I'm thinking, you know what? I think I have to get out of here. It's down to 2 hours left of daylight. I'm in the best spot I've been in all year. This is the spot to kill the buck I've been dreaming of for 3 years. Been following this deer, studying this deer, hunting this deer, playing cat and mouse with this buck for 3 years. I'm finally in the best spot I could possibly be in, I think, for right now in late October. And the freaking wind changes from what it was supposed to be and is now blowing to the worst place, or close to the worst place. I need to get out. And then right at that moment, as I'm coming to the realization that I have to bail on my most highly anticipated hunt, I hear, wow! And I jump out of my saddle, basically. And to give you guys a little more context, I'm hunting inside the timber from a just-cut cornfield. I'm probably 30 yards into the timber, and then the bedding kind of thick stuff is another like 40 yards farther inside from where I am. This crop field is on a different neighbor's land, right? So I hear this cow. I don't know how to make the sound, but basically it sounds like a bow going off. And I jump out of my seat and I turn and I look out into that field and I look down another fence row. And there, 60 yards away, unbeknownst to me this whole time, is a neighbor hunting. Shot a deer basically right out from behind me. And this guy is not practicing any kind of scent control. This guy does not have any of the things that I obsess over to try to make sure that deer aren't winding me. He's just out there and whatever. So he shoots a deer. The deer goes running off, crashing off. Deer blowing everywhere. And then the wind continues to be bad. I'm sitting here realizing, okay, I've got this thing happening. He's blowing into everything for sure. I was on the edge of the stuff. And what do? I mean, I now know that he's going to be blowing his scent into this thing the entire night. He's going to be tracking around the entire night. So basically this spot is blown up for the evening. So I ended up saying, okay, this spot's blown. The hunt's a bust. I might as well not blow up another place too. So I sat it out till the end of the night, went and chatted with my neighbor, helped him look for his arrow, et cetera, et cetera. But point being, I went from the highest of highs thinking I'm in the spot to kill my buck. Finally, everything's come together. I went from that to now instead having two people's wind blowing into an area I didn't really want to be blowing, a guy walking all over the place. Every kind of commotion you could imagine is happening now. Not what I expected, not what I wanted. I could be frustrated. I was frustrated, very frustrated. I was still frustrated this morning. I could stay that way. At the same time, I realized that nothing good's going to come from letting that continue. I can't let that take me out of the game. So now today, I got to shake it off. I got to keep at it. Got to stay positive. And I got to remember that it can all change in a second. It could change tomorrow. It could change tonight. And after 3 hours hunting tonight, it's down to half hour left. It's down to 10 minutes left. It's down to 4 minutes left. It could change in a second right then. That is the rut. That's what you got to be thinking about. And that's what I would encourage all of you to do this season. So with that out of the way, let's hear from Andrae D'Acquisto. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have some incredible hunts in these coming days, and good luck. All right, back with me for part 2 of our discussion from earlier this year is Andrae D'Acquisto. Andrae, thank you for making time to come back.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good and glad we can be having this conversation because back in August when we chatted last time, we covered a lot of interesting things, got a ton of feedback from people. People really enjoyed it,
Cool.
But they wanted more. So you got to give the people what they want, right?
Right. I didn't realize it was that far away, August. Okay.
Yeah, time flies, right? That period of the year can go really quick. So yeah, that's what I want to do, Andrae, is I want to try to cover some of the things we never got to last time, and then maybe go deeper into a few things that people had follow-up questions on. So if that all sounds good to you, I do think that a good place to start might be in your real life right now, which is how your 2020 hunting season is going. Are you willing to share with us how that season's gone so far?
Yeah.
What's the story?
Well, it's been an absolute nightmare. So this is probably the first time I've ever started out season with not being able to even walk in the woods, look at anything, at any time at all to scout or prepare. I'm still ordering socks in, still ordering broadheads in. So I'm limping by with all my old equipment. I'm still hunting on my original 1.0 because I still can't get one for myself because we've been so busy. But other than that, for the hour and a half, couple hours that I get to jump on early morning, evenings, I mean, I could have filled my tag probably 10 times over already, but not locating the caliber deer yet that I want to hunt. So I was hoping this would be my big week. And it turns out that this is going to be the busiest week for all our products coming in and shipping out. So I will become a rut hunter this year, probably.
And that's
a present to be sent to me.
And that's something that traditionally you usually don't care for too much, right?
No, I don't. I mean, not that I don't care for it. I mean, but seeing I don't have a target buck to go after right now anyhow, I guess it's irrelevant. Hopefully there's something out there, I still got a lot of standing corn around or something out there that will pique my curiosity, or maybe we take care of some of these big ugly eights that are running around on this property.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get rid of for years. So
what do you do in a situation like that, though, where you just aren't finding the buck you want? How are you searching him out? Is it just you're running a ton of cameras? Are you observing every night? What's that?
Bunch of cameras out there, getting little bits and pieces of stuff that Cody's posted online, asking neighbors and other farmers if they've seen anything good. Just your traditional short little leads that you could get. Because I really haven't. I did have a chance to take a walk the other day and located what I like to locate is some massive rubs reopened. So that tells me there's obviously some big mature dominant deer there, but it doesn't tell me the caliber they are. So all the things I've had pictures of so far are just some decent deer, but nothing news shattering. So
yeah. So then you're becoming a rut hunter.
Well, I will be in another week if I can't get it done here.
Well, I guess that's a good point then. Let's tell me what you're going to do over this next week then. So the last handful of days in October, what's that going to look like for you this year?
So I jumped on posts the other day, decided there was a pretty big 8 could be taken out, and I probably should have been there a day earlier. Checked under the cameras, and there was a primary scrape there that about 4 bucks were battling over. I got all kinds of video on the camera and stuff, and so I went to set up on that, and I had two bucks come down, one work a scrape, but not the big one. So I'm concentrating on right now scrapes. It would be nice to know the caliber deer that's on them. So this deer will probably push 170 as an 8.
Wow.
And there's a couple other ones that are in that caliber, but and these are traditionally the type of deer that will keep the ones you want off your property because they take up space, pretty aggressive. But so the times that I'll get on early in for evening and mornings now, obviously I'd love to be able to sit later right now on some midday stuff, or later mornings. I'll just keep bumping around, keep checking cameras, and in between work, get stands out, coordinate things with the business, and I think we're going to be all caught up by around November 1. So that'll give me some time to get out and spend a little more time. There
you go. Now these late October hunts, you mentioned focusing on those primary scrapes. Can you describe in a little more detail what you mean by that? There's a lot of different people that use that term, but I've found that everyone kind of envisions something a little bit different. What do these scrapes look like? Where are they located?
These are active scrapes. There's there's scrapes everywhere. Everywhere you look, everywhere you walk, up and down logging roads, there's scrapes. And a lot of those are like half-hearted scrapes where a deer will just be trugging down a logging road, running to where some does went through and lay wood down. These are traditionally scrapes that are there every year. Even in the spring, it looks like there's nothing working it, but it looks like there's a scrape there because they're just every year the same trees, same areas are, and usually the biggest dominant deer is running off that, and other ones will work that same branch. So, and another note too, one of the best ones on this property was just the farmer trimmed his I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but he trimmed the lanes along the fields, and he cut the best primary on the whole property branch off. So I don't know if I was going to try and do what a lot of these guys do and put some new branches in there and make it work, but I just kind of let it go, and it was a tragedy. But
yeah,
so that's what I'll be concentrating on, those scrapes. Again, I got a picture of something that is probably the biggest that I've seen. So, and then and the stuff's starting to move now, where it was a short movement. These deer are starting to travel more and work more scrapes, and then so you're going to get some stuff that you probably haven't seen, some stuff spilling off the neighbors, or that might have been on the border of property, starting to work some of these scrapes that are on the property. So
yeah, when you're setting up on a scrape like that, are you setting up to be within shooting range of the scrape, or are you trying to set up on like a downwind access route? How do you think through that?
No, yeah, you never want to do that. The old downwind theories of days gone past, where a deer will scent check a scrape, that's all bullshit, because I'd sit downwind of a scrape and I'd have a deer come in from the total opposite direction, work the scrape, and leave without being able to get shot. So you want to be able to shoot that scrape, but you got to have your A game on. And right now, you'll see in your cameras, they're just, most of it was after dark. Now they're starting to get right after dark, and in this next week now, they're going to get just a little earlier and early enough where they'll be there, in daylight hours. So this is the week to capitalize on it. And like I said, last night I had one I could have, one of these smaller bucks that was working that area came in and worked one of the scrapes off of that big one, which I also could shoot from that tree. So I might even give that, now we just got a fresh snow. He didn't show last night. I might give that one more shot here before I start heading to some stuff, wandering into some stuff a little closer to food sources. Now we got snow on the ground and a little nastier weather. So
yeah. So when do you switch to more of a, when you move away from the scrapes and focus on core rut stuff? Is that like November 1st on the dot, or is something else going to tell you?
Last year it ended up around that time. Usually you just get a feel for what's going on the property with the activity of the deer. Like now your deer are feeding heavy. They're still in the cornfields and all that, and these deer are out searching and putting down other scrapes for groups of deer that are in different areas. So they're traveling more. So now you can be on some of those scrapes or on field edges where a lot of the does are starting to or are feeding, and then some of them bucks will start coming out. And it seems like they move earlier and earlier, and all of a sudden they're up and they're moving, and they don't stop moving. So I was hoping last night, and I thought it was going to happen, because one of the bucks that came in down there obviously got booted out off the mountaintop there from another deer, and he come running through like a scared little little bee, and I thought for sure that thing would come down and work that scrape, but it never did. And I was hoping another buck would come in and get on that scrape where he would see that, then get a gander up and come on down, but never came off the mountain. So now they'll start moving out and moving earlier, and it'll be a little tougher to pin them on the actual one scrape, So
yeah. So once November does hit and it's feeling like the rut's on. Now I know you say that the rut has been frustrating for you in the past because you like to be after one specific buck, but in this kind of case where you don't have the one specific buck that your heart's set on, which is a situation that a lot of people listening are in, right? They just want to kill any good buck.
Right.
What
this is it then?
Yeah. So what are you doing once the rut hits? What does your day and your setups look like?
So I still scout during that time, because certain areas and spots that the farm will heat up. But they're traditional stand setups or locations that you know from time tested or you read the sign. You want to be set up in those spots, proper with the wind, and the whole goal is that anything that comes through there, you are able to kill. So let's say you set up on a spot like that and you get a bunch of deer come through and nothing that you want to shoot. As long as everything that came through could have got an arrow in it and you could have been successful in filling a tag, it was a successful sit. You just had to, and the biggest thing, the hardest thing for me is to make a last-minute decision because we got a lot of rack bucks around here and big rack bucks of it's the one you want, and that's very, very hard to do on the fly. So it's really nice to identify something with a camera before, and when you see that deer, you get yourself in go mode and you're ready when it comes through. Otherwise, you're just, right to the last minute, you're going to have to make a split decision whether you want to harvest that deer or not, So, and guys make the mistakes. So, as a matter of fact, just a buddy of mine just all happened real quick, and he's got a deer in the ground that's nice, but not all that big that he wish he would have, took a second look or had an opportunity to figure it out, but it's smaller than what he wanted, So,
yeah.
And that happens a lot.
So you mentioned that you're still scouting at this point, looking for sign. What's the sign that matters for you during the rut? Because we covered a lot about what matters to you in October, but is that different at all now?
So there's obviously it's been raining here. I think we had 6 inches in the last few days. There's mud everywhere. You can read sign. A blind man could read sign right now. I'm going to concentrate on big groups of does now, where all the does are feeding, where they're at. In a little bit, they'll probably go into hiding mode. But wherever those does are now and feeding now, there's going to be a lot of bucks wandering around, poking around, even though the does aren't ready. So I'm going to concentrate on spots like that are heating up. Freshly picked cornfield over here. Your alfalfa's dying out a little bit now. Our clover's still kicking in pretty good. So they're feeding a lot in that, clover field. And then we got some turnips and radishes in. Those will start kicking in. So, you start getting a lot of does feeding on that. You're going to want to be hunting basically those spots. Even though you're not hunting the does, them bucks will be there and they'll be, out in the fields, sniffing around and shagging them. So.
And that's mostly for evenings on those food sources, or even will you be close to that even for those morning sits?
Evenings, you could be on those spots, even depending upon your moon phases in the mornings, but traditionally off of those spots in the morning where they're coming back to bed.
So
now, let's say you're back in the timber, those deer are out there all feeding, and they're going to be trickling back in to bed in the morning. And now they're starting to, especially when the corn starts coming down, are starting to have a little bit longer of a run back to bedding instead of bedding right where they're at. A lot of them deer have been just living in that corn most of the year, just parking it there, eating and milling around. So,
yeah, do you do anything different once that corn comes down? Does that flip any switches for you? Because I know across a lot of parts of the country that's happening right now. It's happening for me on a property I'm hunting.
Yeah, it's nice because well. Downside is most of my corn's out and all my neighbors are still in, which is a very bad thing. So once all the corn comes down, that cuts more than half your cover that those deer can be in is gone. So it just makes it an easier hunt. If you got corn in all year, you can have bucks living in that corn most of all. Then does could be out in there, and it's just a little tougher to get to them. So
yeah. So the food sources you mentioned, like a recently cut cornfield or a turnip field or alfalfa or whatever. Mm-hmm. You mentioned usually going to hunt those in the evenings. Can you walk me through how you would specifically set up a stand to be hunting one of those food sources? Because some people might hear you say that and think that you're just randomly on the edge of the field. I'm guessing, I don't know, are you thinking about certain things with how deer getting downwind of the food source or areas where you can find a wind safe position?
Wherever your ambush site is, you got to make sure your wind is right for that. I'm on one of my favorite food source spots. Corn to the left of me, clover field to the right. I'm on a hedgerow in a pine 8 feet off the ground that's just stark naked, that's strategically located where I can even get some on the right wind with the right speed. I can get the wind literally blowing over the top of deer that are coming downwind to me and up, and it's phenomenal. I'm not even in the timber. I'm kind of out on the edges of it. And that's what's really nice about that is you can get a glimpse at something that you wouldn't normally see if you're just inside the woods. All of a sudden you see, a big old buck pop out way at the end of the clover field, chase a few does around and jump back in. That's some great intel to have to slide over the next day and make a move on it. Where if a lot of guys like to stay back in the timber a little bit, catch them coming out, you don't see half of what, what you're learning on post. And I don't know if a lot of guys know that, but years ago, I was a big field edge hunter. I mean, I spent every evening was on a field edge and never even really went back into the timber and stuff. And so you get a chance to learn a lot from that and some exciting hunting.
Yeah. Now, we kind of talked about this in August, but I want to just bring it up again and really specifically focus on during the rut. And that is the scenario you just described there where you're sitting somewhere and you see a buck pop out and he just chases a doe off the food plot or the field and he's back in the timber. So you saw a buck you want to shoot and you saw him do something. So in a lot of cases, I'd say, all right, go there and hunt there the next day. But in this case,
that's pre-rut.
Yeah, it's pre-rut. So tell me now you just saw him chasing a doe. It could be random, right? Would you move over there?
So you can if it's small bucks shagging around, you can kind of tell when but that might be just an area that deer is coming to frequent that field to see what's on it and then popping off. Those does, if you can identify or see a group of does where a doe's coming into heat, that's like having live bait for you. So traditionally that doe will not get bred for 4 days. She'll have the stink where the buck will know it's getting close. And those deer are not like the rut where they change their patterns. They still go to their bedding and their feeding. So you can kind of, if you know that section of your area or woods and you know where them deer traditionally come to that field and go back on that corner, there could be 4 other groups of deer coming that go off totally different ways to bed and coming from different ways. So now that buck is concentrating on those does. So you go over there and you put yourself in that corridor. You got a portable stand. You go over there. You see what what trails are really heavy. You get downwind of them, situate your spot, and you hunt them.
So okay, this is important. I think you're basically saying that while you might not be able to usually pattern a buck during the rut, you can pattern the does. And when you know that a group of does or one of them within a family group is either in heat or sure seems like it's close, and you know where those does spend the time, focus on that spot for the next few days, and you kind of pattern a buck by doing that, right?
Yeah, because you really can't pattern a buck at that time of year. They just are. Like I think I mentioned that in somebody else's podcast of it. They don't know what they're doing the next day. It could be, once that shit starts hitting the fan, it's pretty chaotic, and it's weird that you got these deer, they're patterned, they're in certain areas, these bucks, and as they start branching out and traveling more, they're off on tangents, and they don't know what they're going to run into, and so you're kind of like I said, right now is a good time to. They're still working those scrapes, but once it gets to the point where these does start coming a little bit, those scrapes are really hit or miss, and I don't like to burn up a lot of time on them, unless they're right in a corridor where the deer are traveling. Then obviously if a buck's coming through, he'll work it, but you could pattern them does, pattern that spot, get that spot, and then just hunt it. That's
now, is that more of
what was done?
Is that more of a thing that just works at the very beginning of the rut? I'm wondering if once you're in November 10th and 80% of the does are in heat, it probably isn't as effective because everything's lit up, right?
So then what you want to do is now you're going to locate a doe that's literally in heat, and the bucks are dogging her. She could be bred in a couple days. You're going to have not one buck on her. You're going to have a shitload of bucks, and that little. I don't know if you ever experienced it during a rut. You'll be on wherever you're at your lease, your property, and all of a sudden for 2-3 days, 4 days, the thing it's just ice cold. It's like a ghost town. It was like on fire for a minute and then just cold. Mm-hmm. Well, all those bucks might be on one doe that's going into heat and just trailing her and tailing her, and wherever the hell she's at or traveling to, that's where they're at. So you have to have the wherewithal to go find that situation. It's pretty easy with scouting, and I do the old bump and dump at that time. You'll jump a bunch of bucks in a draw or in a certain spot, and if there's a bunch of them there, and some of them ain't even moving or running off, you kind of know that you're in the right draw. So you could, you can set up and hunt that spot. And if you're on the other side of the farm, you'll burn up 2-3 days and literally not see a thing. And I don't know if you've experienced it, but I've had as many as 10, 12 bucks all in one draw, trying to get a hold of one doe that's coming in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that I want to dive deeper into, because you mentioned this real lightly last time. But talk to me a little bit about the scenario where you would do this. So I know you said, okay, it's during the rut and it's cold, and cold by like you're not seeing a lot of activity. So is there a certain window, like dates? Is this a thing that from November 7th to 15th? It's a feeling? Okay.
Yeah, you'll be sitting there, it's like, Jesus Christ, this is insane. You're sitting here and it's just, you're thinking, you're in your traditional good spots, and it just stuff just goes cold on you, and you just, you got to find out where the action's happening, and it's happening somewhere. And sadly, if you got a small piece, it could be happening on somebody else's deal, and you're stuck just waiting for it to happen. So,
are there any specific kinds of places that you are going when you're trying to find where this rut fest is happening? Are you going to walk randomly or hit each bedding area or what?
I know, like on this property, and with experience of hunting a spot, you should, over the years, you should learn those. We have an area here that there's a long, drawn out, really thick, nasty cedars, grass. It's an old pasture area that literally comes to a long, drawn out point and ends up going nowhere. It comes to all open fields. And at that time of year, them does everything gets pushed down into that tight point. It's like really thick where they can kind of hide and try and shag from them does, and it just lights up like you wouldn't believe in that corner, and you will just see big buck after big buck just heading down into that corner, shopping for something and heading back out, looking if they're in there, if they're stacked in, or and I have had numerous big deer in that spot. And now I have stands set for where they come in and out of there, so it's a really nice sit. I got a buddy coming out this year. I'm going to put him on that spot, and he'll have himself a good time. So, it's thick, but it's grassy thick with mixed pines. So where you're sitting, you can see a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not real high in a stand, but you get a chance to see all the action. And some of the spots are where you're so thick of the pines that it really sucks, because it just happens all of a sudden. Boom! There's 160 some inch buck sitting right there, and you didn't even have time to react or get ready, and you got about 2 seconds to make a move, or it's gone, type of thing. So I hate those spots, but there are some that are really good that a guy just has to sit.
Let's say then we are searching for a place like that. I went out, it's been a lousy 2 days of rut hunting, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, there must be something going on somewhere else. So I'm going to try to find it. I'm getting aggressive. So I'm walking around like you're describing. I'm checking out some of these nasty, grassy, thick spots, and I find it. I get in there, and all of a sudden 2 bucks go running off, and I see a doe squirt out, and I'm thinking, okay, this might be what we're talking about. Can you tell me how you set up in that spot? Like, because do you want to walk through it all and see it? Do you stop then?
You're there, so you found the mother lode. Now you just you look for the beat trail or the sign that's good with the wind there, and you get on that trail, and you set up and you sit tight. I've had a lot of times where I'd be setting up a stand, and sometimes I'll run and grab a stand and bring one back in and set up on that. And I've had a lot of times where I'd have a stand with me. And as I'm setting up, lo and behold, the frickin' deer come piling right back in through, and you got a buck standing there watching you set up your stand too. So
yeah,
that's why I traditionally like to stay kind of low and kind of out of the way. But when you find those little honey holes, I've done it a lot of times. I've pushed them all out of there, gotten my stand, and boom, they all come just toward evening. Even if they went in bed in a little further, they just come piling out of there. Those bucks, all kinds of stuff. So,
how long will you give a spot like that? Will you hunt it for 2 more days? Will you sit on it for a while?
A spot like that, you'll capitalize on it right away. You're in the shit. It's going to happen right then that night. You're on the red hot sign. If it takes 2 days, those deer, they're not there. They headed off, or who knows what the hell happened.
Okay.
Might have ran across the road. You might chase across the road or something back in there, and then some other big guy got onto it, and they're battling over there. But traditionally, when they're tending that doe, they don't give a shit what you are, as long as you're not bumping and spooking the doe. And a lot of times the does don't even seem to care. I've almost had that assumption that some of them does literally bring them bucks by you, hoping the frickin' that you can get the hell that thing off their ass to get pounded so bad, So
yeah. Help me out.
But it's it's weird. And they don't give a shit. If they got a hot doe, they can see you. They can. They ain't leaving her side. Wherever she's going, they're following.
Yeah. What about a situation like you personally might find yourself in, where you go and you find one of these hot spots you're hunting and you're in the middle of it? There's a doe running around. There's 7 bucks all over the place, but none of them are the buck you want. So you're not going to hang around just in case a big one?
No, absolutely not.
Wow.
So like early season this year, I'm sitting observation post. Nothing's going on yet. Everything's, I go into certain fields that I got food plots, alfalfa, and I sit back and I watch. And let's say I got 5-7 bucks all out in the field feeding, a bunch of does out there. None of them are acknowledging each other. They're just on the feed. It's second week October. I basically know that what I've seen that night there is what that place has to offer. And I just get down and I go look at the next spot. And then so I went to another spot it was actually spot 3. And that's where I located 3 monstrous 8 points right off of one of our food plots. Just and you'll see some of this stuff on Whitetail Addictions this year. I got it on video, but it's pretty exciting. I've seen some nice cages coming out and shit, and they're all frickin' 8s, big, just heavy 8s. So I kind of know that's what that spot has to offer. So I kept bouncing the little bit of time that I had. Matter of fact, I think that one spot I had to come back to one time because I got a call, a truck was coming, I had to get down at a half hour before dark and go unload a truck, which just about killed me. But that last half hour could have been where maybe a Magnum would have came out and I'd have glimpsed them. So I didn't get the intel that I really wanted there. But normally, like I said, you weed through it. Most guys they ain't leaving that. They're parking their ass. They're seeing them deer. They're not leaving that spot. And I'll sit a stand that'll have a shitload of 150s come through, and I'll get down and I won't come back because they're just not what I'm looking for in that spot. So,
man, yeah. Well, you know what you want, and gotta go find it. I get that.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co and make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
What about the next scenario in here where you found this pocket of excitement and you do see a buck you want, but he's locked on that doe hard, and you know they're not coming your way? Do you walk me through what you're doing? Are you going to throw the book at him with every call and rattling sequence you got? Do you
No.
chase him down?
I've done a little of that stuff, but all the calling and rattling you want ain't taking that buck off that doe. You're going to have to. So let's say maybe it's a doe that you know. Maybe it's a doe you've seen before and you can identify, and you know her travel routes, or where, you know, you just try and get on that corridor. A good calling card for you to key in on is when a big dominant deer, if he's got other bucks harassing trying to get to her, they will leave some aggressive rubs on those trails that doe is using. And that's when you find that, just you sit that trail, because you're going to get your crack the next day. That doe's going to come through there and he's going to be on there. And I've seen that just dozens of times over the years. So you can get some good intel that way. It's still a little bit of scouting. I've already grabbed a stand, frickin' ran around almost like I was elk hunting, and tried to set up where there was more of a pinch point, thinking that doe was heading that direction. She'd go through, and I'd just be off a little too far, and they'd head through and head up somewhere else. So, but I don't know how you could call a buck off a doe that's in heat he's got. Why would he want to do anything but hang with her, you know? So
yeah, he's got what he wanted.
Yeah.
So you'd go back in there as soon as you possibly could and get set up on that corridor somehow.
Well, that's going to be, so
him.
let's say, like I said, let's say it's a 4-day window. Let's say he's on day two. You have to be on that trail that doe's using, and he will be following not far behind. So, and if you miss it, you miss it. If he breeds her, then he's off running somewhere else, and he's not on that spot. And the rut is just it's a total luck and percentage game, and it really is in the favor of the hunter. You know, that's why most of these guys love the rut, because you can get out there and get a crack every day at bucks that are traveling. There's not, you know, I'm just more attuned to one that I want. But if I had to feed my family or just get a deer, I think I mentioned it many times, I'll have a buck that'll get up and he'll go buy, 10 or 7 different sets on a property in one night.
Yeah.
Where before you couldn't get them to go by one.
Yeah.
Of those spots. So it's really best for if you want to fill a tag and harvest. And it's probably your best bet for the buck of your life too, because at that time of year, some of them deer that, you know how the big deer are there, they don't move a lot. They're hung up in their own area. They're solitary. Don't make a lot of, and now they're up playing and getting stupid and doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. So their guards, they're leaving themselves wide open, So
yeah,
it'd be into your advantage to be in the woods every frickin' minute you could at that time of year.
Yeah. And is that what it looks like for you? I think I remember hearing at some point that you don't like to hunt all day, or you used to, but don't anymore. Is that right?
I can't hunt all day. That's just too long of a, it's one thing if you go on a hunt. Here's the big dilemma with I own my own farm here and run a business and have farming. If I was away for a week and just hunting, I could sit a whole day, but I'd never sit in the same stand a whole day. I would sit in three different spots throughout the day to break it up. But a lot of time, those spots too, these all day hunts, I could tell you the 2 or 3 hour window you're going to see your damn deer on that whole day sit. And I used to tell my buddy that all the time. He'd sit all frickin' day. I'd see my action, and then early and late, and he'd see just one set of action too during the day. So, but this rut time, those deer, they get up and they're moving. Even when the does are bedded, they're searching. They're just traveling a lot more. So it really is to your advantage to be in there. And I get down way too early. A lot of times some bucks will let those does go back to bed, everything, let it settle down, and that's when they get up and start shagging and running big, big miles and putting some miles on to look for does going to heat if they haven't got one already,
Yeah. So do you ever hunt midday anymore? Is that something you ever tried keying on some way?
Yeah, when I do, and I was getting back to, I lost the point of that, is that when you're hunting out of your own home, you know how it is. There's something always comes up. You're trying to do something a little bit before you go, just like we are right now. We're trying to get this podcast done so we both get in the woods, right?
Yep.
Then I got to run their shop. I got to do some, see what they're doing there, making sure they're building the right stuff. And then you just you're not really hunting full scale. You're juggling stuff. Where if you're out on a hunt or just strictly there hunting what's in somebody's piece, and you're spending your whole time doing that, you're a lot more effective. But to get to that point, if the moon phase says activity at 12:30 in the afternoon, like when I used to in October, I'd be taking corn out or my crops out, and I'd have to unload trucks at prime time in the evening, or he'd want to get going right away in the morning. I could dive out for an hour and a half in midday and get a little sit in or something like that. So it's just that's a long day in one stand. I've never been real patient to be able to do that. I always found it was more beneficial to get down and look around than it is to sit scout hunt, so.
Yeah. You mentioned the moon phase. This is something that I know you've put a lot of weight behind over the years. We didn't really touch on it in our previous conversation. Can you walk me through what it is you're keying in on when it comes to the moon phase or times, and how that changes your strategy?
The general, so I don't ever let it be an excuse for not getting in the woods. I probably use it for an excuse to stay a little longer, or so if I hunt and I traditionally get down at 9:30 or 10 earlier in October, and it says that there's going to be activity at 10:30, 11:30, I'll sit the extra hour and watch it. But traditionally, your deer will move, and then they move a little later every day, so you can kind of follow that around. And it's you're back, you're doing your farming, and you're seeing deer out midday, because that's the time they're up and moving midday, but you're doing what you're doing, and you only got time to hunt in the morning. So it's a little frustrating that I almost wish I didn't know about that, because it's like, am I wasting my time here today, or should I, do that or sleep in and go out a little bit later? And then just the day you do that, it ends up costing you big. So hunt as much as you can, as often as you can.
Yeah.
You can't kill them from, you have a tractor in the house. So
true. And the moon, when you said when the moon times tells you to, stay a little late or something, am I right in that the moon information you're paying attention to, you look at the red moon days, right? The dial, is that?
I just follow. So before even the moon charts, I got Adam Hayes dials that I've been following.
Yep.
All that Murray studies they did. And traditionally what I found before even that is the closer to full moon, the later the deer move. When it gets full moon, they just move late, and they're coming out after dark. But traditionally on that, then your mornings are better late morning. So in the morning when you get in and go hunt right after sunup, a lot of those deer are bedded and they're not up and moving yet. And everybody that's hunted has seen that. You'll go into some time. I go in through the center of my property, because it's the only way I can go in, through a bunch of fields, and I could travel this whole property and not see a deer up on its feet anywhere near the corn, any of the fields, get into my stand, and the shit won't happen until 9 o'clock. It just is not. And then there's other times that you'll go and you'll blow 40 deer out on the land because they are up feeding at that time early in the morning, right at sun up, and then heading back in. So you can kind of use that as a guideline to when the most activity is, and maybe how to get in a little different, or use it to whatever advantage you can use it to. So, but one thing is that's usually on feeding, and you got to be also smart about it that the rut and big deer activity is totally different from this. Has nothing to do with feeding patterns. It's got nothing to do with anything but pecking order and rut. So you still have that information, but some of these big deer are out moving around not because the moon phase says they should be on feeding. It's because they're going checking scrapes or making scrapes, early October, and maintaining a scrape line or things of that nature too. So you got to take that all into account,
Yeah. So basically, once you get to this part of the year and into November, there's bigger forces at play. Is kind of what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to, like I said, them bucks are up and they're moving. They're moving just about all day. They're still bedding somewhere here or that, but they're up and they're poking around if they ain't got a doe, and it's they can come through anywhere at any time. So
here's a very specific scenario for you that I actually encountered recently, and I'm just kind of curious how you would think about it. Basically, I spotted a buck that I think it was a very brief sighting, just a flash, but I think it was a target buck. But he was doing something that I wouldn't expect him to do. He was heading kind of into a tiny little bedding pocket, like a quarter-acre little pocket, where it was next to a dirt field that got disked under. It's not where the really good stuff is. So he dove into this little tiny pocket on an evening hunt, while I would have thought that if he was going anywhere, he'd be going to another part of the property that I could also see where they're cutting the corn right now. So the scenario I'm looking at is, okay, I know that with the corn being cut right now, that most every deer is going to be flocking to that cut cornfield. So you would think that the best place would be somewhere near that. But you just had this sighting of a buck you're after on the other side, going into a random place that you wouldn't have thought to hunt, except for the fact that you just saw him there. Would you hunt the random spot where you just saw him, or would you say, that was probably a fluke, I should focus on the spot where probably he'll be?
Absolutely not. I always go with what my eyes have seen and told me, not what preconceived perfect scenarios and conditions are. I've found so many huge bucks that I hunted years ago in Wisconsin in spots just like that, heavy plowed fields. You could barely even walk across them, and a buck could go better in them spots, and nobody is. Just to walk to that little thicket of brush out there, you'd break your ankles trying to get to there. Now, if you think he was diving in there to bed, that he was just going to go in there and that's where he was going to lay low, or did you think he was just traveling from point A to point B? Or
that's the thing, is it's hard to say, because he was leaving where I thought his traditional bedding area would be, and he was and this was like an hour, more than an hour before dark in the evening, and so he's leaving the main bedding area and was going into this little tiny kind of secondary doe bedding area. So my thought was that if that was actually him, like I think it was, maybe he was just checking out one of these little tiny doe pockets and then circling down.
The next day I would have been set up in that little thicket for him, maybe to do that same thing. Maybe that's the route he's taken from. Maybe that's not his territory the other way, all that prime shit, and he has to go to that little plot across another plowed field into another whole area of woods where his travel route is, going out at night that way.
Yep.
And that's a little stepping stone to get there. So, if you thought he was bedding in there, you can actually just go blow him out of there too in the middle of the day and see if he was bedding in there and held up. And then a spot like that too, sometimes you don't want to hunt them where they're at. You want to hunt them where they're going. So, maybe you leave. That's not going to be a good deal for you to go across that plowed field and there's not enough in there to set a stand. If you've seen where he came out, you get on the edge of that and you wait for him to make that move and head that direction again. And you can go over there on a plowed field where you've seen him come out, go over there and take a look and see the tracks he left behind. If there's 3 or 4 sets of him going that way, he's doing that pretty damn consistently. And you know that you found something that nobody else is going to even think. You got the honey hole, man. You just got, it's been keyed up for you, ready to go do it. So
yeah, I'm gonna that happened last night. So I'm going out there tonight and gonna go over to that spot where I saw him, because like you said, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, it seems like you shouldn't. Well,
here's the worst. What's worst case scenario? You sit on the field edge. He comes out again. And that's not worst case. It's probably best case, and you kill the damn thing going out.
Yep.
You sit there, and you don't see him come out that way tonight. And then you get down, or before you go, I would even look around and check them tracks. You get pretty excited if you see that there's a trail actually started on the beginning of that beat plowed field, and he's heading that way. Now you know you got him coming that way.
Yeah.
Now you're just going to be concerned that he gets out there early enough where I think it's getting to where they're moving a little worse right now, if I recall. It's at like getting later and later, but and you learn something, you sit it, and you take a shot at it. That's a buck worth killing. So, would you rather be sitting there with a chance at that, or on the busy field with a shitload of does and small bucks and having a good old time looking at all that action, or or getting out to where you want what you want, sitting there
Yeah,
I'd take a shot at that for sure. So
yeah, that seems to be the thing to do. So it seems like it's either going to be one of those sits where I see nothing or I see the one I want, and I guess when you're after a buck like that, that's what you got to do.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with seeing nothing a day or something, or you learn something new, or
yeah. I want to rewind the tape just a little bit back to a follow-up question I had when it comes to the buck locked on a doe situation, because this is something I want to make sure we covered. You talked about the fact that when you see that, you should move right in there into that, whatever that most likely travel corridor is for that doe, and be there to hopefully intercept them coming back or forth again the next day. But how long will you give a spot like that? Would you say just the next day, or would you give it a couple days because it might be 2-3 days there together?
That's if it's like I said, to rub on a trail, it's happening right then and there. It's you're doing that. You're setting up. You're hunting right. It's almost like there isn't a delayed time to a scenario like that. You're not getting times of the essence. Once he breeds that doe, and it's he'll take her out somewhere that nobody's getting to, no other bucks, no other people, and then a breeding her, and it's over. So you capitalize on sign as quick as you can, just like you did there. You've seen something, you move on it now tonight. Then you see something else from there, you move on it. You don't backpedal, and you don't wait. You want to be on a red hot sign, virgin sit, and you'll be in the game like you've never been before. Your opportunities and your chances are just going to start going up for you. I'm seeing it on our page, dude. I'm reading stories from guys that have been him-hawing around for 10 years, 6 years. They got mobile, they got aggressive, they went in it, and they got it freaking done. What's your level of aggression? It's hunting. Go hunt them down, and you're literally like a wolf hunting them down, and your stand is your setup at the point that you're gonna try and ambush them. So stick with the hot sign and keep going. You're good. Percentages will be way in your favor then. So for guys that got their old, I sit back and wait until the shit hits the fan, then I go in. That's fine for you if that's what works for you. Or you got whatever scenario you be. You got this perfect stand. You need this perfect wind to hunt the spot. So the spot's red hot, and you're not getting the perfect wind. Why not take a portable and go in there and manipulate that spot right now while it's red hot, instead of waiting for the shit to peter out and miss the boat? It doesn't never made any sense to me from day one. So,
I heard you, I can't remember where I saw this, but you were talking about this idea of finding a red hot spot like that. But you mentioned that a mistake a lot of people make is that they're afraid to overhunt a spot like that. So they'll hunt it a day and then they think, oh, well, the first hunt's done. I should go somewhere else. But you said that no, you need to keep pounding it because if you leave, it's going to fizzle out.
You hunt it while it's hot. That's traditionally October hunts earlier. Your best time in is your first crack. Then you've kind of polluted a little bit. You kind of got a deer to one up. But when you start getting more toward the rut and all that, and you get a spot that's like a frickin' zoo. None of them deer give a shit anymore. They're running, and it's weird. You'd watch those. I would check trails up in upper Wisconsin in the Nicolet. I had a open hardwoods I'd hunted, and there's faint trail that would go around the edge of the swamp on the edge of the hardwoods and where the traditional bedding was. And I remember every year I would just be anxious. I'd always go over there and look at that trail, and I'd go over there and look at that trail. And then one day I go over looking at that trail, and overnight the thing is just beat to frickin' mud. It looks like 1,000 deer running that trail. It's the same amount of deer running that trail, and they're just running back and forth up and pre-rut before that rut, and they're just it's red hot. Everything's happening. Time to sit that trail, buddy. Get on there and stay on it because it's like I said, I've gone in there, I've bumped bucks that seen me bump them and came right back. They don't give a shit. So hunt it while it's hot, and when it fizzles out, then move and go find the next hot spot.
And so when
you say on a hot spot all the time,
yeah,
you're gonna capitalize.
So when you say fizzle out, basically you mean don't stop hunting that spot until you stop seeing the deer you're interested in. If you're sitting there and if it's been 3 days and you keep seeing them,
and he's still using it, you hunt it, and all of a sudden now the next day comes around and the deer don't show and they move or whatever. Then you get down and start poking around again. Go after them.
Yeah. Now, what about? We kind of talked about some specific situations related to hunting the rut with lockdown does or hunting those evening sits by food sources. But what about mornings? Because for a lot of people, mornings are what people think of as like your best rut opportunity. They've got this late morning movement and cruising and chasing. And where are the spots you're focusing on for the first part of the day during these November hunts?
So if it's that time of year, and like I mentioned, you have traditional spots that are good that you've if I'm on my farm here, everywhere I got stand set in these certain areas, it's in the perfect spot for certain winds, sometimes for multiple winds. But if there's a deer traveling through there, you can get him shot there. So you're going to start bouncing around. You're going to hope, if it's still a deer that you're looking to get, you're going to hope it's going to be luck that he just happens to come through there now, that spot, that day. For whatever reason it is. It's not pattern, but you have a spot that is good, that you can get shit killed. It's a good set, it's clean. You get opportunity when it comes through there. And if it doesn't, you could try and sit that again. It's like rolling the dice. Or you jump to the next spot that's really good. And hot, and you go set and you sit that. And you just start bouncing around. You see something you like, and if you see something, then you can slide over with a portable or
so what are these
mobile. So
what are these spots though? Yeah, because you're saying that you're hunting a traditionally good spot that is safe from a wind perspective. It kind of makes me think like you're saying like these are pinch points or
so let me tell you what I think about pinch points. Deer know pinch points. Deer that live there know it's a pinch point, and that there's a. So when I hunt those spots, I kind of like to sit out where I can cover anything getting in through a pinch point, because sometimes geographically they have to go through spots. And I don't think deer really like to do that. And I think their guard gets up on that. So unless it's the rut, it's deer that never been through there before or don't know the area good, fine. But I'm more hunting specific early. Them spots are tough. I bet you got an open gate that the deer can walk right through, and then the big buck just jumps the fence 40 feet down from it and cuts it short and doesn't go through it. I just not a big fan. But I got areas here that are big draws on both sides that are maybe 100 yards across. If a deer is coming through there, it's got to come through from one of them walls to the other. And I have those spots where over the years I watch and I see how the deer move through them. And some of these bucks will climb off a mountain like you won't believe, cross the bottom and climb up another mountain on the other side. But over the years, you'll notice that all the biggest deer seem to do the same thing in that area. So you set up a stand for that spot. And if a big buck is traveling through there that day, whatever big buck it is, you're set up for them. You get your crack at them.
How about this situation like that? Let's say we found a spot like this. We've never hunted in there, but we've seen this big oak that's in the middle of what's obviously a bedding area. And over the years, you've seen big bucks pass this tree over and over, and for whatever reason, you never hunted there. But let's say the reason why you never hunted there is because it's like smack dab in the middle of the bedding.
Yeah,
and there's no.
That doesn't sound like a very good.
Yeah,
it sounds like you're gonna get one good hunt out of that, and then the jinx is gonna be up, and every freaking deer that comes through there's gonna know.
So that was
you're in there, but
yeah. So would you just never hunt it, or do you?
Well, no. If I seen a big deer coming by there, I would go take my one crack at it, right? And it could be a spot that during the rut, deer travel through that there might be every week or every day. It could be a different buck going through there. You're getting a fresh ambush on them. What traditionally happens in spots like that when you hunt them early, them big alpha does will learn that that's a tree that's being hunted out of it, and they will really be cautious on coming through. I had it this morning. I'm in this is the most phenomenal little spot where they trickle through and by to go to bedding. And the deer kind of know I dropped my hat, believe it or not. And I always carry an extra hat. So instead of climbing all the way down a tree, I put another one on. But this big alpha does where they would have traditionally just came through. I'm hunting on the right wind. I'm really careful about what I do there. I don't have anybody else hunting on those spots. They get through and go about their business. Bucks will follow through. But now because there's a frickin' hat laying there, and they're getting a little scent from down low, they stop, start looking around, looking up in the tree at you, and just, and all of a sudden, they learn that that's an ambush spot, and that big mama's going to show every other doe coming through that, hey, stay away from that tree, slide over here, and then you ruin a really good spot, So you got to be careful on scenarios like that. So.
Yeah. So if you had, let's say we're on a week-long rut vacation, and you've got an area like this where there's a spot in the middle that's amazing, but you also know what you just described. If you go in there, a lot of deer are going to wind you. So if you've got a 7-day rut hunt, would you hunt the edges of the downwind edges of the area and just wait until the last day or something?
I would still opt for a good set. I wouldn't go below that because you screw up the doe that's coming through first, and the money loads what's after her. So you still got to be able to have a good clean set where deer can get through there without being molested, not knowing they're being hunted, to get your crack at that big deer. If you start educating every doe that's in there that you're in that tree and they start staying away from it or creating all kinds of havoc, it's not a good deal. So some of them spots are just not huntable, brother. There's not the timber there, but traditionally I'll get in some pretty small little trees, raggy trees on the edge of that. And you've heard the term, I think I read that before, if it was Bill Winke wrote an article about hunting the fringe. You don't ever really want to be in the midst of the pot. You want to be in all the chaos that goes on. It's even though they're traveling like a main trail, just think all of the interactions and the walking off to the right of the trail and the left of the trail and the bullshit that goes on. You want to kind of be on the fringe of that, where you can get the job done, but not really mess it up,
Yeah.
Like I had some guys that told me about a good spot once, and there was like 3 trails that branched off. and they were sitting in the middle trail they set up on. I'm like, what the frick are you doing? There's never going to be a scenario that's going to be good. There's going to be something downwind of you off to the side every time. Get off to the side, way off to the side of one of the three, and the ones that are on the far trail, you don't get. But everything coming through trail 1 and 2, you get 100%. And then the opposite, when you go on the other side and you hunt it. You're parking a frickin' permanent stand in the middle of it. You just probably ruin that spot for anybody else for the future.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think a lot of this is common sense. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, it's easy to get stuck in overthinking these things sometimes. And, you just got to focus on the basics, and that'll usually do it for you.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
You mentioned the funnel thing. I want to dive a little bit more into that. You said that you feel like sometimes these deer feel uncomfortable being in these funnels.
I don't know. I just never really liked the.
So is there? So if that's the case, then my question is there any type of funnel that you do still like to hunt? Is there something?
I like them, but I don't sit smack dab in the middle of it. I'm off where it widens out, and the opportunity is. So let's say you get an opportunity at the deer before it gets to be unfocused.
Okay.
Or you get the opportunity at the deer after he's made it through the leery zone and he thinks he's home free.
So
you're kind of again on the fringe instead of right smack dab in the middle of Hell's Gate.
So not at the narrowest point, more the top of the funnel kind of situation.
Yeah, and you'll notice some of them deer, they crawl up on some goofy ass shit that you don't even, they take it wide or they take it so. But it's it's interesting how sometimes you find a sweet spot, the wind's right and everything, it's in the right area, and it's just like taking candy from a baby. There's spots that are just not huntable, and you really can't learn a lot of them until you get in there and especially on a new set, you do all the education you can on what you've known about thermals and about wind direction and everything, and it almost takes a sit to learn. And I've sat it and I thought, man, this should work, and it's like, man, there's just no way you can ever get away with nothing here. I'd love to be here. I'd love to park it here and have a permanent here, but it's just not in the cards,
Yeah, that's got to take some discipline though, and experience, of course, but to be in a spot that looks great and feels great, but then you see, oh shit, it's not what I was hoping it would be. A lot of people would just stick with it and think, well, maybe I just got unlucky. Maybe it'll be better next time.
So that set the other day for the scrape, that's right in the bottoms. And this is, so here, just think of this. You're in a coliseum and you're in the bottom of it, and all the deer are bedded on the rim. I mean, that's some crazy shit to be
Yeah.
watching you go to your shit. So I take the creek bottom in, I take the lay of the land in, or I get set, and I know what the wind does. No matter what the wind does direction-wise, it doesn't matter when it gets into these draws. Even though it might be a north, if it hits a draw that's running a little bit one direction, the wind's coming down the draw. So I got a flank trail that's going to be my bad trail. That's going to, if something comes up, I'm screwed with the wind. But I see there's another big valley off to the left, and I can't even see with my wind bottle, but I know from experience there's going to be a flow of air coming down that draw, and the wind coming down the draw to my right is going to hit that flow of air. And lo and behold, I had the one buck that I got all the video on, working the scrape, come down that, and I'm like, this son of a bitch is going to, is he going to get me? And he did not have a freaking clue. And the wind was blowing right at him, but I think it was hitting that wall of wind direction. It worked perfect. And then I knew the wind was going to die down, and I'm on a creek edge where I'm on the ledge of it, and all the thermals are going to just fall into the creek bottom and flow away, and I could have killed the deer. And everything worked out perfect. So now I know a spot that's hot. It's a red hot spot. If a big deer is there next year, it'll be a good spot, and I have a tree. I know that works for a certain wind, northeast, and I'm gold. I might go down there on the northwest, and something might be a little different. So it's that kind of years of trial and error that you learn stuff like that. So,
hey, speaking of thermal and weird little wind things like that, but you mentioned how your thermals would drop to the creek and then just follow the creek out. Do you see that happening just in a location like where you were at there, where you're in the bottom of a big draw, or will that even happen in flat country? If I'm in flat country and I'm next to a creek and the evening light fades.
So if a creek's running, obviously it's got to be running. There's got to be some grade to it for it to be running downhill. So in a perfect scenario on a creek setting, you want to be on the down current side, because that's where, let's say everything goes just dead calm for your setup.
Yep.
If you're up that creek, your scent's going to slowly fall to the ground, and it's going to slowly fall the direction that the water's running.
Yeah.
So in the thermals, it's a powerful blob of air that just moves. A little bit of a gust here, a little bit of a gust there. It doesn't do shit to that massive movement of air moving that way. So and I hunt these field edges that are everything is coming down no matter what happens. I can't get on the opposite side of the field, because even when the wind's right for that, toward dusk, it's all heading across the field. So now I'm sitting on the opposite side where you think the wind was wrong, and I'm playing that thermal against the wind, and the thermal's beating the shit out of the wind, and I'm getting away with murder. Nobody in their right mind is going to think I'm going to sit on that side right now because the wind's blowing right into the field. It's really not. The wind is blowing to the field, but the mass of air is going the opposite way, and as it bumps and it grabs it, it slowly goes to right. Then, again, did not get I've been getting really good at this shit for the last years, almost surprising myself sometimes with what if you can get them spots figured out for that wind direction and thermal and stuff. You're gold, man. You don't need anything else, but just don't let any of that air mass hit them deer, and you should be good to go.
Yeah. And that just comes with experience probably, or
trial and error.
Yeah.
And I've had spots that you go 3 feet higher in a tree stand, and the wind's going in an opposite direction. You go a little bit lower. It's I don't know. So like I said, some engineer said something about air's going to do what it's going to do, and you don't know what the hell it's hitting on the way through all those draws and rocks and timber and stuff.
Right.
So some trial and error, but
yeah, I guess that's all you can do is get out there, try things, learn from it, and keep trying.
So to think about it, always think of this: where would I want my scent to go? In a perfect scenario, where would I like this scent to go? The other night, I'd love this scent so I come off the flat, and I'm a little bit of a hill toward the creek. So when my scent starts settling, it's not settling on the flat. It's on that angle going down, and I want that scent just to slowly pour down to the creek, and then just flow that direction with all the other air masses going there, and it worked out perfect. That's exactly what it did once the wind stopped blowing, and then thermals all took over. It was, like I said, it's an excellent spot now. Now, the morning hunt will be a whole other animal. It's now it's a totally different deal there. So a guy'd have to probably hunt that and I'd probably set up different on an MOR anyhow. I would get up on a rim and get up a little higher what it's carrying out.
So let's jump a little bit back from the wind thing and back to just standard hunting the rut in November. We talked a little bit about what you're thinking with food sources. We talked a little about what you're thinking about for those morning hunts, pinch points. We talked some about bedding areas. Does this change at all as the month of November progresses? Is there something different you're doing mid-November versus the very first few days versus the last week?
Yeah, so let's say the rut's pretty much cooked. A lot of the does are bred. And then you have these, I think traditionally your big rut hunters say that that's really your chance at your biggest deer, that these big bucks are all wound up and they're going to go start now. They're going to travel big, vast amounts of distance looking for some stragglers that they can get. Now you got a deer that's coming through a property that's not on all the little intricate draws this way or that. We got big ravines or big creek bottoms that come up with the cliffs on both sides. For that week, you'll get deer that come in from who knows where, 2 miles away, and they'll just come and they'll run that whole. There's actually an old logging road that goes up the whole thing, and they just get on that thing and they run through the whole frickin' property, just traveling, looking for some little, straggler going to heat or whatever. So that's a big travel. So you'll set your stands for some of the intricate action coming off of those, but you'll include that travel quarter toward, which is normally not as great in your package. You know what I mean? Maybe you'll slide your stand over so you get a little of that, and you get the normal movement from side to side. Or are you a spot hog, or do you like to sit one solid trail and just get the wind good for that and hunt that one piece? Or you try and hog a bunch of 3 or 4 trails?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. That's something I've been kind of changing on. I used to try to get as many things going for me as possible, but recently I've tried to switch more towards what do I think is the absolute most likely option, and then just be perfect for that one best option. What do you think?
It is very tough to manage it all. And as I mentioned, the worst spot in the world is where you can't watch everything out in front of you. There could be some shit coming from behind and right or left, or that is an ugly,
yeah,
situation. And I'd like to say that I could handle those and manage them, but it's isn't it nice to just be downwind off the sail of a beat the shit spot where you're just focused and you can sit tight and manage. So there's a little of both for that going on. I'm curious how many other guys are like to be the spot hog. Seems like the more I'm a spot hog, which I kind of like to get as much traveling through, but don't get as done as much as if you're just that set shot.
Yeah.
Here he comes, 20 yards. It'll be a 20-yard shot coming through. Wind is perfect. No scenarios, and
yeah,
kind of nice to have that route too. But
yeah. Which when it comes to bedding areas, another rut thing that we've briefly touched on. This kind of goes back to what we talked about a little earlier when it comes to, do you want to be right in the middle of them or on the fringes? Yeah, right in the middle would be where the most activity is. There's stuff coming from all over the place, but if you can't hunt it without deer knowing you're there, then it's worthless. So,
and again, a big buck goes in there and starts shaking them does around. Just, I don't know if you could look at it in the snow sometimes, or just watch. It's like they cover every freaking inch of that whole area anyhow. So at some point in time, they're going to get within range where you can shoot them. So let them cut their own throat by, how are you possibly going to sit in the middle of that with them deer running up, down, all around, backwards, and one of them damn does is going to catch you or going to glimpse you. So,
then the jig's up.
Yeah, I'd sit more of that fringe of that.
Yeah. Hunt the downwind fringe, right?
Yep.
Is there anything else, Andrae, when it comes to the rut that you're doing that has helped you, that's different than most folks, or that you kind of view as your secret sauce? And again, I know this isn't your favorite time, but I know you've also killed a lot of slammers during November. Any other tricks up your sleeve that we haven't touched on?
No, it's just basically at that time of year, you're gonna, being out there and being the most. I know that a lot of slammers is, I almost didn't get because I just a guy who can't sit late enough. And I do know that I get down and I leave some of the best hunting on the table, but it's just the way I've been hunting all my life, and it's kind of hard to change.
Yeah.
I know when I hunted Illinois, I never got out there early enough. I always got out there when I don't know how many times I come to my stand, there's a monster standing right under it, was on its way through, that just late to the dance, So some of those spots you almost got to be there for your evening hunt at like noon to get in and get settled. I just not accustomed to that, So
put your time in, right? So it's
you got to put. So most guys are, but again, you can get caught up into spending too much time and not being in the right spot, which is, I think, a bigger tragedy than not being in there early enough. So you're burning a spot. Just you're putting hours in somewhere that's not the hot sign, or or just over the hill. If you looked around a little bit, you'd have definitely picked that other spot.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a tricky thing with a rut, especially if you're hunting a travel corridor or a pinch point type area where maybe there's not maybe it's not high deer density, but that eventually a good one should come through. That's something I've struggled with in certain places. You're not going to see a lot of deer, but half of you says, all right, I should move because I'm not seeing much at all. The other half of me says, well, if you could sit this thing 3 days straight and the buck you're after might not be in the area at all, but on day 3 he will come through if you just stick it out. And that's a tough one to know if you're wasting your time or biding your time.
And at that time of year, like you said, it could happen. I made this analogy a million times that I could sit on this frickin' telephone pole out here on the road during a rut. And if I sat there long enough, I could shoot a good deer. I could shoot one off my porch probably during a rut. But
yeah,
I just don't know if I got the wherewithal to climb up a spot that's just not, I'm not feeling it, and just wait for that. I guess that what I'm saying is I'm not a very lucky guy, so I like to make my own luck. And just to roll a dice on that, it's just not, and then for it's a deer that I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So I'd still rather go, why not get down and run around during a rut? You can get away with murder during a rut.
Yeah.
You're not messing anything up, where you got a little touch here in October and that. So,
yeah. And so tell me just a little bit more. Let's wrap it up with this, because this is something that I used to be, me personally, a lot of guys, especially in higher pressure areas where there's more hunters. I used to be all year round just obsessed with making sure no deer ever knows I'm there, and really beating myself up if a deer did wind me or if something went wrong, even during the rut. But it seems like sometimes we can get away with being a little more aggressive or getting away with a few bumps here or there during November because, like you just said, their mind is elsewhere. Would you agree with that?
So you're talking about the scenario of the day you hunt, but if you think that a deer, that when you go to a stand and you hunt it and you leave it and you got away with it that night, if you think them deer are in the middle of the night and their travels don't know that something has been there or haven't crossed, you're always going to have. So in all the chaos of it, I call it the virgin sit. You can mess everything up, and then in that area there's a spot that you didn't mess up where the sign all reads good, and you work it to that point and you hunt that spot. You take your shot, it's your best shot, it's your first time in, you've read the sign, it's red hot. You can't get any better than that. Then you get down and go find another spot like that the next day, or another spot the next day, or and you keep on the move with it,
So keep
or
on.
you have these spots that are just prime, and you get down and you go to the next one. I think we got 100 sets on this property that are all, in good spots if something were to be there, and maybe 30 of them are really active good areas yet to this day that haven't changed, but still going to one of those good spots,
Yeah.
I mean, them does looked up at me. They knew something was up in that tree, but I got the old head mask on and just played it good, and they didn't really get the win. And they'll be back through there again. It's just one of those spots I know they just travel through there, and they just it's really good, consistent spots.
So point being, seek them out, hunt them down sometimes, but if you're in the right place, you can get away with a little more if you know you're in the right place.
Yeah, and like I mentioned about this property in the middle of it, I have to get in and out of here, and I ain't walking 1.75 miles back every freaking day in and out of there. So these deer are accustomed to, like a farmer, they're accustomed to them bikes ripping through there. They're accustomed to, sometimes if you're too careful with it, now it's a different scenario. You're going out there to hunt, and now it's not a norm to them to see the chaos. That might be a worse scenario than, that buck bedding back in there and hearing you drive through on your bike that you're out there again. I've never really, I shouldn't say that. Years ago, I probably fell victim to that. But with all the scouting and the stuff that I do is, that I've learned over the years, it does not bother me a bit to even jump a deer on the way in, or jump the deer I'm after on the way in, or have him know I'm hunting him. I just don't let it bother me. So
just keep moving on him, and you'll surprise him eventually.
I'm coming at you, man. There's only one way that you can avoid it, is to get the hell out of this property and leave. And a big deer is, there ain't no way I'm getting out of this property and leaving. I own this property. I live here, and I'm staying too. So let's do the dance. Let's play the game, and then see who comes out on top.
Yeah. So. There you go. Well, I guess if there's any kind of theme to this conversation, then it's probably go, just like all of your hunting, it seems like really the moral of the story to killing a buck during the rut for you is to find them, hunt them down, and then put in enough time, keep on adjusting, and eventually good things can happen. It's not rocket science. It's simply being smart and hunting hard.
And hunt where they're at. You got to be where they're at. If you ain't, they are where they are. And if you're not, you might as well be a million miles away if you're 10 acres off. So,
yeah. All right, Andre.
Now, let's hope some slammer from like 3 miles away comes over and starts running some does in here this year, and I'll be happy if I get a glimpse of one. So
I hope so. Well, I know you want to get in the stands, so I want to let you go so you can wrap up your other work and go find that slammer. So, Andre, thank you for making the time to do this. And real quick before we do shut it down, do you have any updates for folks as far as anything with the custom gear or YouTube or any other content you want folks to check out?
Yeah. So check out our page, Mobile Hunters United. See what some of the stories that the guys are success stories. You can learn a lot from that. After this week, we should have all orders fulfilled that are in the system, and we now should have a little stock for each of these items in. So if a guy gets a bug just before, so I guess we're on time with everybody for the rut now, for the next phase, what guys will be hunting. You should be able to pick up just about every one of our models here in the next week and a half, 2 weeks. We should have some stock, so you can order that, and let's hit it hard, man, and send photos. I love to hear the stories and see some of them photos too, big and small. So
perfect.
And let me know what happens to you this next when you go in there now.
Yeah,
I want to get a call.
All right, I'm gonna do my best to stick an arrow in midnight, and I'll send you a picture.
All right. Sounds good, brother.
All right. Thanks again, Andre.
All right. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Like I mentioned at the end of my introduction, good luck in the woods. Have a blast. Push through the tough times. Grind it out. But ultimately, always remember to have fun. This is what we've looked forward to all year. So don't get so stressed out. Don't work so hard that it's not fun anymore as well. You got to balance those things. Enjoy yourself. Have the best hunting season of your life. And until next time, stay wired to hunt.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.